So now I'm recording this call. And the first thing that I want to talk about today is the name. So when we invited everybody to the steering committee, we called it I Am for Tampa. And then when we were at the steering committee, we decided that we didn't want the name I Am for Tampa because it was too inclusive to Tampa, and we really wanted it to be more regional. And so we said maybe Greater Tampa Together. And so we played with that a little bit. And as we took that out into the community, we found that there were many things that either had used that name or had that tagline. So it wasn't showing that we were doing something different. People thought it was more of the same or just kind of picking up on the tail end of something that had already been done. So we were really, really fortunate, and I'll talk about this again in a minute, but 22 Squared was part of our steering committee. And so they offered to help us come up with a new name. And so the name that we're playing with right now, and we'll get your feedback at the end, is Connect and Propel Tampa 2019. And I'll tell you a little bit about how that fits into the whole picture and what we want to do with it. But I did want to start by saying that's the name that we're looking at right now. And that's one of the things that we've done so far in moving things forward. So you were all at the steering committee, and so you know that the project's designed to initiate and engage a diverse community, and so you were all part of that process. And so we really took everything that everyone said to heart, and we said, all right, what people really want is they want this to be the first of a series of summits. As we heard back from people, they said, we love this, and we want to make sure that it encompasses the Bay Area, and we want to see St. Pete and Clearwater involved, and we know Hillsborough County needs to be involved. So we've really redesigned it as this being the first of a series of summits. And then we looked at the dates when we'd be able to do it. So when we met for our steering committee, we weren't sure when we were going to be able to have the summit. And we were able to secure the convention center for November 4th, 5th, and 6th. So it'll be all day on the 4th, all day on the 5th, and half a day on the 6th. And the real reason that we chose those dates are that's when we were able to get the space. Because when we started looking for space for 800 people in 2019, we had to look for where would be a good place to house it, which the convention center is a great place to talk about Tampa. And then we just had to work around when they would be available to accommodate us and the most cost-effective times to do it. And we had already hired David Cooperrider to do a summit in 2019. And so we were looking at October and November, and the steering committee definitely felt November would be the best month. So that is booked, I'm happy to say, reserved space, and David and Lindsay and Prue are reserved to come. So our summit dates are set. Nice. And then what we've done so far is we had the steering committee, which you were part of, and then we created the 6 working groups. And so it's the 2 working groups on this call, which is the Stakeholder Group and the Pre-Summit Momentum Group. We'll talk a little bit about what the Guiding Values Group and the Task Logo Group did. And we also have the Post-Summit Group and the Rapid Advancement Group that we'll talk about. On April 24th, Jane Castor was elected as the mayor of Tampa. And the reason that has significance is because Mike is currently working to meet with the mayor to invite the mayor to be part of our project. Nice. The guiding values were drafted and the task was drafted. And I attached both of those to the email that I sent out. And so any feedback that you have, you still have the opportunity to share with us, and we'll be able to look at that. So for the steering committee, these are going to be the next steps. We're going to identify how to take the work that we did at the steering committee and how we're going to work in the city of Tampa and with the intent to grow regionally. So we're going to put that summit together. The 6 working groups that we created, we're going to get them moving into their next stages. We have the location, and then we're going to invite others to join the process. And so that's going to be the big kickoff that we do after this call, is really get the stakeholder group involved to start thinking about who do we need in the process to meet our task, and how do we want to invite them? And so the 6 working groups from the steering committee that we talked about were the guiding values, task logos, stakeholder, pre-summit and post-summit momentum, and the rapid advancement group. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows exactly what these groups are doing or what they've done, so that if somebody asks you about part of the process or you want to provide feedback, you know where to provide the feedback to. So I sent you a copy of the guiding values. I wish you could have been on the call when they were finalizing these guiding values. It was really an amazing process. They took a lot of thought and a lot of consideration went into the values, and they really worked on making sure that they created values that we would live by at all times throughout the project, and to make sure that it was very inclusive and that it included everybody's voice. So the reason you see these depicted in a circle is because it was really important for the guiding values team to not have more emphasis on any of the values. They said all of them were equally as important. And the only way they could think to show that would be to put them in alphabetical order and then have them displayed in a circle. So anytime you see the guiding values, they'll be displayed this way, and then their explanations will be listed in alphabetical order. And so I won't go through and read these because I sent them to everybody. So hopefully you were able to read them. But if you have any input or anything that you would like to add or have suggestions on, you can just let me know, and I'll make sure to re-engage the guiding values team and have them consider that. But for now, this is really their finalized draft. And unless anybody has any concerns or any great things to add to it, we will use these as our guiding values for everything that we do moving forward, and we'll post and display them in that circular format. So does anybody have anything they want to say right now on the guiding values that's on the call?
No, I really liked it, actually, and I love the fact that they're equal and equal in parts. So
it was amazing to just listen to them discuss it and really finesse it and work with it. So I really like them too, and I can't take any credit because all I did was type them. And then the name change we talked about, 22 Squared worked on. And so what they did is they took all of this, we gave them the words and the interviews and the work that we did at the steering committee and like our ideas, and they started putting them together to say what would be important. And so Mike worked a lot on this. Mike, I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about that meeting or share kind of how this popped.
Well, I met with Scott Scheinberg, who's the creative director at 22 Squared, and this is what he does for a living. And he said, if you can't put it on a t-shirt, it's not any good. And he sat down and listened to me and took all the input and thought about it for a while and came up with a name. And he talked about the importance of the name is it really lends to a campaign. And so he talked about, connecting and mobilizing, connecting and educating, connecting, and whatever you want to fill it in was kind of the basis. And you could see a series of a campaign going forward. Connection was the key part of everything that he saw. And we looked for an action word. This is more than just, we're going to talk about it. We're going to do something. And he actually pulled out a thesaurus and we had lunch and started going through words, and propel was the word that really came up with. And the group came back and said, without the location, it doesn't mean much. Connect and Propel, you may think of the sports drink, but when you say Connect and Propel Tampa, it changes the meaning of it. So the group really felt and resonated pretty quickly from there. And the other thought about that is that we're going to, the Rapid Advancement Group is promoting doing a 501c3 not-for-profit to be able to house the money, grants and donations. And so the way we're going to brand how to deal with the region is that it's going to be called Connect and Propel Tampa Bay, Inc. will be the not-for-profit, with each of these summits being with the name of the region. For example, Connect and Propel Clearwater, Connect and Propel Hillsborough, and so that everybody realizes that this is not a Tampa project, this is for the region, starting out with a series of them, starting with Tampa.
And so that's what I have on this picture here is just Connect and Propel Tampa Bay, which I should put an ink in there, would really be the backbone for the project. And then from that nonprofit, we would have Connect and Propel Tampa 2019, And then that might have work groups, Connect and Mobilize, Connect and House. I just made up some examples here. And then you also might have Connect and Propel St. Petersburg that might kick off, and they could Connect and Educate, Connect and Mobilize, Connect and House. So you'll be able to see through the through having this structure that you can add to it. So does anybody have any feedback for us on that?
I like it. I just have a quick question. I'm still not 100% familiar with Zoom, but the way that I'm viewing the picture, like I can see Connect and Propel Tampa 2019, Connect and Propel St. Petersburg, but then there's green lines going to something else that I can't see because that's my viewer of the participants in the meeting, like such as you guys. So how can I fix it to where I can actually see the entire picture of what you're looking at?
You should be able to, if you move your mouse, there should be something that says enter full screen, like in the top right-hand corner. Do you have that?
I have view options. So it shows like fit to window, 50%, 100%.
So see if you
full screen, you said, or
if you view full screen, then it should put the full screen up there for what we're looking at.
Sherry, if she just grabs the list of people, the group of people, the pictures, she can move them around the screen too.
Drag and drop.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Sorry, guys. I don't mean to. Oh, okay, I'm just gonna hide the thumbnail. Okay, sorry. Go ahead. Now I can see.
Can you see it? All right.
Yep, I'm good. I'm good.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
All right, so the task I sent out, and the task is really important because everything we do moving forward is going to feed from this task. And so Bill Casal, who's on the call, worked with me on just taking all of the information that we had. So the task logo team did a great job. They got together and they really took everything that we did at steering and all of the interview notes, and they looked at it all and they put it together and they came up with like this overall structure. And then we just kind of took that and brought it down. So we want the task to have enough information so that we can really talk about what we want to accomplish. And so the stakeholder group knows who we need to invite. We want to be able to create some measurements in saying what we're going to do, right? So we want to connect people, we want to co-create, and we want to make sure that we discover, right, diverse things. We gave some examples of work groups or projects that might come out of it from the information that we've received from the community. So people have talked about having a clean and inviting environment, a healthy population, affordable housing. They've talked about economic success. They want communication and understanding between diverse cultures and belief. Mike had this great quote from one of his interviews where someone said that Tampa's like a paella. We all keep our individual attributes, but then we're able to come together to create something fantastic. And so people talked a lot about education and how they wanted to propel education forward. And they talked a lot about the multimodalities of mobility, which is transportation, right? Transportation at all different levels. And so we put that in the task to have some idea of who the stakeholders could invite, but not limiting what might come out of the summit. And so then we'll look at, developing concrete goals and propelling the city forward. So we wanted to find out if anybody had any feedback on the task, anything that you really wanted to see in there that isn't. I guess I didn't make it in this PowerPoint, but we did add something about the arts in there because someone wanted to see more about increasing the arts. So you'll see that in the updated task, which I sent on the email. And I just wanted to make sure if there's anything else that people have heard, you heard through the steering committee, things that you wanted to be included that aren't, that I could take it back for consideration with that group. Bill, do you have anything you want to add, kind of working through that?
No, I mean, the only thing I was going to mention was the arts, but you have it in the other version. And I mean, I think we've been we've heard all the feedback up to now and incorporated that in here. And I think it gives some good, it gives a great foundation for, you know, where we start. Of course, I'm sure these things don't cover everything anybody could possibly be interested in, but if you go back and look historically at the needs of the Tampa Bay area and Tampa in particular over the last 10 years, at least every one of these things were and still are on the list. So.
All right, good. So if you do have any feedback for that, this isn't your only opportunity. You can let me know and I will take it back to the group. But there's a lot of work and thought that's gone into that. So we appreciate that. And then the logo.
Sherry,
Yes.
quick question. Was the word transportation specifically excluded for mobility? Was that a decision that was made for any particular reason?
The only, it wasn't specifically excluded. It's just that when we've talked about transportation with people, transportation for a lot of people, when they see that word, they think of like autos or bus transportation. But when we talk to people, they really broadened out transportation for us for everything from disabled people trying to maneuver through the city, right, without being able to see, to bike paths, to the scooters being available, to like line transportation systems, to the bus systems, to additional transportation, to vehicles. So transportation is so huge in how people describe it that we just kind of put it there as mobility to not limit that.
Got it.
Does it make sense though?
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else?
Most people think when you say transportation, they think of machines. And I think the mobility kind of takes it beyond that.
I like it a lot. I remember conversations around pedestrians being able to get around and the sidewalks and things, so it kind of encompasses everything.
It's been amazing. Mike, I don't know if you want to say anything, but as Mike and I even have talked to people and they've talked about transportation, it has really opened our eyes to a lot of things that we've never even considered.
Yeah, and what one person told us, if you want to think about it, start thinking about what do you do with your feet. So it was walking and it was crosswalks and it was blind people navigating our city and handicapped people, and then you build up. They said we really are too car focused. Even the planners get car focused, or we get rail focused. But the reality, if you make it grassroots and whole system, you start with your feet and then you start moving from there. Bicycles from there. So yeah, so it's a broader term, Michelle, that doesn't have the baggage of transportation issues that we've been dealing with in our community. So
I think that's great.
Thanks for bringing it up. Anyone else? Okay, so the logo design I wanted to share with you. This is still being worked on. This really is like a complete draft. They actually just sent us a sketch of what they were working on. They haven't even finalized the draft to send to us, but I did want to share it with you since we're meeting. This is some of what we were looking at, and the real beauty of what they're doing that was exciting. It took me a few minutes to catch on to it, but once I got it, I thought it was great. Is they said that the real power is around the ampersand. So it's the and. So it's not just connecting people, but it's connecting and propelling, or connecting and mobilizing, or connecting and educating. But it's connecting and the action that we take. And so that really helped encompass that this is a collective action project. This isn't an initiative where we want to talk about things that need to be fixed. This is an initiative where we want to come together and we want to connect people and we want to create an action plan and make a difference. And so that's really what they're going to be able to pull forward through the logo. It may look very different, when they're finished, but I just wanted to share with you what we have so far because they have sent us these sketches. And so this is what they're working on. And you'll notice in the bottom one, you can see it better, but it's a paper airplane. And they felt that the paper airplane was really a good way to not only talk about our area and how important aviation has been to the Tampa Bay area, but to really talk about how simple it can be when you connect people for them to create the and. And a big part of appreciative inquiry is that when you're using it, one of the terms that we often use, and you'll hear Mike say this a lot, is yes and. And so we use yes and in lieu of a but. So that's kind of where they are so far. We'd be happy to hear feedback and pass it forward. Lori Stem is in China right now, but she's done a lot of work in working with them. And Donna Morrison is an artist that's been working closely with us, and she's also done a lot of work in helping with the logos. So we appreciate that.
And kudos also, Scott Scheinberg brought us John Stapleton, who is one of the logo specialists at 22 Squared, and they also donated their time on doing this as well. So hats off to 22 Squared. Yeah, we have people that I've talked to, how we have, they said, you got the best, and we got the best as volunteers, which is really awesome. So
nice.
And I love that it's also the notion of like improv. So, you know, you can build on it and it can go off in directions that we haven't even thought of yet. So I love that whole notion. This is really exciting stuff.
Thanks, Robin. And I love that improv. Great example.
Can I ask why it says Tampa and not Tampa Bay?
It's just a sketch.
Oh, okay.
So he'll add more to it. He was just telling us that the names would be at the bottom.
So the logo would go to Tampa Bay Inc. for the overall project. It would say Tampa 2019 for the Tampa Summit. It could say Clearwater. It could say Hillsborough. But that, again, is just the qualifier for where the summit is. But the overall logo will go broad into the region. So that's why we liked it. We could adapt it to whatever you wanted to go do on location. So we could even include Manatee County at some point in time for Robin down there.
And one of the other things that I will tell you is that Lori and Donna really wanted to see a water element in here. So that's what they're working on for the draft. Is they want to see that water element included. I have no idea how they'll do that, but that was a big piece. We turned that over to the artist of the group. And they were working with the designer to see how we can do that. Any other feedback that you have so far? It's kind of hard because this is our first draft that we've seen, but I just wanted to share what we have so far.
My only feedback, and I think I already told you guys, is that I really like the movement to the right, the forward motion versus the backward motion. I like the one on top, but I like this, what's in the bottom, but I like it going that way, forwards versus reverse.
So I love that, Michelle. And the reason there's two is I wanted to, is the one on the bottom came from 22 Squared that they were working on, that initial one. And when Donna Morrison saw it, she was like, I like it better to the right. That was some of the feedback we got. So she just re-sketched it really quick. So I just put that in there. But that was just like a free sketch that she just put together really quick and took a picture of. But we did give them that feedback as well.
Cool. It's awesome. It's really great. The name, the logo, everything is just fantastic.
Well, that's good feedback. But any other feedback that anyone has, we would be more than happy to share that with the group and bring it forward. So just, it doesn't have to be great feedback, but we do love to hear anything that you like.
Yeah, I was looking to incorporate something with the water on the Tampa side, like wherever they write the Tampa Bay, maybe that is almost the water portion, you know, and then because you already have the sky and the sunlight, so it would make sense.
I think that would be great. I have no idea what they're going to do next, and but I'll pass that on and share that with Lori and Donna, who's working with 22 Squared. I don't know.
I was envisioning like a sailboat because of the propel thing again too, but I'm sure the experts will come up with something great.
That's exactly right. I can tell you as a designer, what I ask the clients to do is to tell me what their goal is, not to tell me how to accomplish it.
Yeah.
There's lots of different solutions for the same thing.
So I think that's great feedback, Leah. And we're just so really blessed to have such a creative team working on it that we just get excited to see what they send us next.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so this is what we're going to be following up on after our call. So I wanted to kind of share with you is the stakeholder group. They're really going to try to determine who to invite and how to invite them. And so like the Cooperrider Center gives us suggestions or ideas for that group to work with. And these are kind of the suggestions of the number of people or the percentages of people that we would invite for each category. And so what we're going to ask for the stakeholder group is if we were to invite these percentages from each of the categories, how might we go about doing that? One of the ideas or suggestions that came from our Cooperrider group, our facilitators, was, could you invite whole systems? Is it possible that if you wanted to put an invitation out to Publix, for example, that you would say, Publix, we'd like to invite someone from your C-suite, a manager, a cashier, and a stock person or a vendor that you use? Like, is there a way that we could invite your whole system to the summit to get feedback from different levels? And how many different groups could we do that from, and what would that look like? But after this call, I'm going to work with the leaders of each of the groups. We'll kind of put together a doodle poll to get everybody together in the group, as many people as we can. And we can either meet in person or via Zoom or both. So we'll talk a little bit about that when we get people together. But what we need to decide is what's going to be the process for inviting people, and how are we going to ensure that we meet the criteria, or as close as possible to this criteria, of the different groups that we want at the summit, and make sure that we're not discriminatory at all in not inviting someone. So we need to make sure that our process is inclusive. How do we still include people if we have too many business people? Let's say that 50% of the people that want to come to the summit are from businesses, and we only want 20% to be businesses. What's going to be our process to not exclude them, but still have an inclusive process? But when we get to the summit with 800 people, or I should say, and when we get to the summit with 800 people, to ensure that we have a diverse enough group there to really create the forward momentum that we want. So the stakeholder group is going to have a lot of things to consider and to look at in the process. And we want to start kicking that off, because if our summit is November 4th, 5th, and 6th, we really need to get together. How are we going to invite people or have them apply or send their information in? And how do we determine who we're going to accept for that summit, and how we're going to be able to expand that? Because we know we have 800 seats, and we want to fill the summit up with the 800 seats. But really, that 800 number is going to shrink down with the number of volunteers that we need there, our facilitators, the number of people that we have there that are ancillary, and how many people from the steering committee are coming. So we want to make sure we invite our steering committee first, because they have a vested interest in wanting to see the outcome of our event, and so working forward. So that's what the stakeholder group is really going to be working on. Once they determine the process, then my role will be to help set that up. If we need to set up something in the software to collect the data from people, if we need to set up a Google form, how we're going to get it out there. But the stakeholder group really has a very important role in determining who we want to invite for the community and how we're going to invite them. And at the same time, the reason I put the two groups together is we're going to have the pre-summit momentum group, and So the who to invite and how to invite them. And the pre-summit momentum group is really going to work on, okay, now that you've told me who you want to invite and how you want to invite them, how do we ensure that we have a social media strategy that aligns with who you're trying to reach? How do we design a website that aligns with who you want to go to the website and what information they need to have available to meet their needs? How do we create a media strategy in the community to reach the target audience? And then they'll also work on creating the save the date invitation, interviewing, right? We want to collect a lot more interviews to bring those voices forward, because even though we'll only have 800 people in the summit, we'd like to have, you know, as many voices as possible. So if we could do 500, 1,000 interviews in that time frame, we'd be able to bring all of those voices into the room with us moving forward. And then we're going to work on creating a sponsorship package and work on our fundraising, which will be done with the pre-summit momentum working group. So the critical work of the stakeholder working group will also feed into the pre-summit momentum working group, and we're going to kind of move all of these forward together.
Gary, can you go back to the stakeholder mix for 1 second? I want to add one piece of information for the group to consider. So we've had 2 conversations with Hillsborough County, including with Michael Merrill, who is the county administrator. They've expressed interest in being involved in this summit, which kind of surprised us. The county is ready to move forward. We talked about it at a steering level and realized that it's too late to include the entire county. But what we're going to consider doing is inviting the county to create their own steering committee for their summit that would probably happen next year, but that they could come to this summit and use our summit one to see one, but also to design their summit that would be a serial summit after ours. So we started thinking we could probably do the same thing and invite a delegation from Clearwater or St. Pete, our neighbors, if you will. It's not really on there unless you put it under government, but I just think that we have to take into consideration now that one of the things that we're going to do is to seed, if you will, the potential of the other summits coming down the road with stakeholders in this mix that's not reflected in our matrix, but that's a relatively new development since we've met as a steering committee. But we've got to consider that development is that we may have 20 people from Hillsborough County coming that will serve as the Hillsborough County Steering Committee. So I throw that out for information, but also for feedback.
And I think to build on that, that will be another part of what the stakeholder group will do, because as they receive information like that, they'll need to decide, do they want to take 800, right, minus the volunteers, minus the 20-person steering committee, and then do our percentages for Tampa, or do they want to include that Hillsborough group in the community and government? And so those will be some of the decisions that the stakeholder group will make for the project. But yeah, thank you, Mike. Anything else that you can think of to add there?
I just have one other question. So in the very first box, that's students 15 to 21 and young professionals, or students and young professionals that are 15 to 21?
So that is a great question. And I really am going to push this back to the steering committee to answer, because initially the box was students 15 to 21. Okay. And one of the things that's part of our task, part of the interviews, and part of Tampa Bay area, or the Tampa 2019 Summit, is we really want to make sure that young professionals are included, right? Across the board, in every interview, it comes up in some format. When you look at what people want to accomplish, it comes up and it's part of the task. So I put it in that box almost as a placeholder, Michelle. That's really great feedback, because I want to know, do we want to include them with the students and just make sure we have a percentage? We could even break it out. Or do we just need to make sure across the board that the young professionals are there? But I think we need to account for them in some way to ensure that they have a large percentage of the population that's invited for the summit. And I don't want to just include them in business or nonprofit and education and hope that we have young professionals. So I'm going to ask the stakeholder group to answer that question for you, because I don't want to answer it for them, but it is there as a placeholder for this discussion, just to make sure that they are represented in a percentage. And Mike's actually doing some work. Do you want to talk about that, Mike, to make sure that we have even more representation from them?
Yeah, we've engaged the Greater Tampa Chamber of Commerce, and I really have been impressed with their emerging leaders group. And we're making sure that the future leaders that are going to inherit whatever we do here, we want them at the scene in developing the vision and the plan. So I've been talking with Jamie Harden, who's the chair of the chamber, and saying that, as well as he thinks he's going to nominate Marianne Frank, who's the chair-elect to the chamber for next year, to come in and be the representative for the chamber in our process. So, but I really have asked, based on Brant Peterson, who I've met on the Rapid Advance group, could not be at steering, but they're a highly energized group of people that want to get involved. And I've made the point, especially when the work groups get formed, that there's a great leadership opportunity for the young leaders to get involved and one, be leaders, but also have leadership responsibilities in the project. So yes.
I was part of the stakeholders group, and I remember when we were kind of figuring this out. And at the time we were saying students 15 to 21 years old and young professionals. So we kind of just grouped it together, but I see how specific you guys want to do. And that's obviously more work that we have to figure out as a group. Maybe break the percentage again.
I wanted to point out that when you mentioned about inviting the steering committee, that's going to be a part of the 800 people. Well, every person on the steering committee represents one or more of these things, these categories. And so I think there's going to be a lot of overlap. Young professional, may also represent the art community, or, there's going to be a lot of overlap. So in my mind, I was envisioning a form where you could check off all the boxes that apply to you, right? And then we get monkey where it tells us the percentages of all the people of what groups, they make up. But I just
That's exactly what your team will do, is you will talk about how you want to do that, and whatever you come up with, we'll figure out how to design it or find the resource that we need to design it. So we'll just look for your team to come back with that. And the challenge, of course, is going to be to make sure that we can capture the information so that we can be inclusive, and at the same time, we want to make sure that we're not being discriminatory in our inclusion of the process. So it'll be really fun work for you guys. But yes, you're right on the right path there, Desiree.
And I wanted to ask also what the status of the open tool, I think that's what it was called. Are you still planning to use that in any way?
So thank you for asking. So Open, for everybody on the call, is a community platform. It's based out of USF St. Pete. And initially, we talked to them about putting our project on Open so that everybody could communicate and work through the Open platform. There's been some issues at Open in really just determining how they're going to use this platform moving forward. And so they want to wait and make sure that they have the vision of Open really cemented out and the funding for it before they put our project on it, because they don't want to invite us to they don't want to allow us to invite 800 people on the platform until they really know that that's going to be the right place for us, which I respect and understand. So we're still working and talking with them, and several people that were on the stakeholder committee for us also are affiliated with Open, so they're keeping those lines of communication open. And Christina reaches out to them each week. So I talked to her last week and said, in the meantime, as soon as we have our name finalized, which I believe we're very, very close to being able to do, what our plan is to just go ahead and launch the website, and then we'll put all of the information on the website and allow people to go to the website and pull it down.
Okay.
But it's been our plan. I just don't have a definitive from Open on when they would be ready for us to be able to add our users. We have it all queued up for them and ready to go. We're just waiting for the green light.
Okay, thank you.
And in saying that, Sherry, that we've decided, because there isn't the right tool to do this in the world, we're going to go build it. So we're building the application that we're going to use to run our summit and to have the post-summit work group coordination be done. So too much to tell you today, but I can tell you that we looked at it, and because, again, there's not anybody that's done this for this process, we're going to go build it and use it in this project.
Well, I imagine that you've received a lot of feedback on tools. I do want to throw Trello out there as a great collaborative tool that you can, it's free, and I've been using it, and it's fantastic for collaborating. So,
just out of curiosity, does anyone know the times of the summit? The 4th, 5th, and 6th, has that been established?
It hasn't. Off the top of my head, I can tell you that we'll probably have 8 to 9 be registration, run the summit from 9 to 4:30, and the last day will be 8 to 9 registration and like 9 to 1 or 9 to 12. We'll finalize that with the Cooper Rider Center, but we'll try we'll definitely make sure, I shouldn't say try, I'll make sure that we end at 4:30 just for traffic to get people out of Tampa starting at 4:30. And we'll look at if we can do it at 4. I just have to work with David Cooper Rider and the team to find out the times. But if you have feedback on that, that has not been finalized at all, so we can take that into consideration for the group.
I'm just curious in terms of just, thinking ahead with getting people to come. It's those 3 days, right? When it just kind of
it's 2.5. So it'll be all day Monday, all day Tuesday, and a half day Wednesday.
Okay.
So yeah, I would love any feedback on times, on what you think. You really need that full, I can ask David Cooper Rider if 9 to 4 would be enough time, but what happens is people start doing the work, and if you have to cut them short, they can't get into it. Like, it takes them a little bit of time to start doing the work, and so I just need to make sure that we've allowed enough time for them to actually work.
It's roughly a 20-hour commitment.
Okay.
Well, and it's important that the people I tell is, look, you got to block it off and protect it. This is not something you can audit. This is the people that got the most benefit out of the steering were the people that were there the whole time. The people that missed the second day kind of dropped off, people that kind of went in and out. And again, if I don't want to offend anybody that wasn't there the whole time, you do what you can. But it's really, when I talk to people, I said, get on your calendar now and block it off. This is not a,
yeah,
hey, I might get to it if I can. This is important, and we got to be able to say, go block it off on your calendar and protect it, because if you miss out on any of this, you won't get the full value of the experience.
And that's
why
I just have to add in there, though, for the steering committee, I did tell anyone who told me in advance they couldn't stay for the whole time to still please come. So we still are appreciative for you being there. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
but we're changing that now. We're saying, okay.
That's good to know. I was one of those people that had to miss a lot, and it drove me nuts to miss a lot. So that's why I know now. So when I'm thinking about, I want to get on this when we were trying to invite people so that they can block it in their calendars, because many people need that advance notice to take 3 days.
That's right.
Mike, I would add to what you're saying is it's also their own contribution. So the continuity of their own contribution that builds up and is built upon all the ideas that are generated is the most important thing. So it's not only, be there and see what's going on, but you have the opportunity to actually contribute and build on it.
Thank you, Robin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, I was just going to mention, when you're talking about, the stakeholder group, not only I think we need to collect the demographic information, but also the area of interest or expertise that the person may bring to the summit, and compare that to the discover task that we've got in the in our task list.
Good. And I don't see him on the call today, but Bruce Johnson will also be included in what we're doing right now because he is the leader for the post-summit working group. And that group is in understanding everything that's happening because they're going to start creating the plan right now for how to bring the work forward. And as Mike said, we are going to work on that software piece with their input. So we'll actually know how people can communicate and how they can work because they'll come onto the software at the summit, and that same software will allow them to collaborate, communicate, keep all of their tasks and information together moving forward. But we will make sure that the post-summit working group is included, and they're going to help us also with how we're going to collect the data, get the measurements there, communicate it out, and thank everyone who participated in the summit. So you'll hear a lot more from Bruce, I'm sure. So the last thing I wanted to tell you about with this rapid advancement working group, and the reason is because some people have heard us talk about it and some people haven't, but after this summit, one of the working groups that came forward was this rapid advancement group, and they meet every Monday really just to review the budget, any expenditures, any plans that we have moving forward, the contracts, like when we had to get the contract for the convention center signed, how are we going to sign it? Who's going to pay for it? How are we going to create the receivable from the project? What are we going to do to raise money for the project to get it to move forward? All of those types of decisions and conversations happen at the Rapid Advancement Group. And the reason we have that group is because one of the most important things about a project like this is that it's not one person's idea or one person's agenda. And so Mike has really worked hard to make sure that even though we had the original idea to start this, that it's not his vision or his agenda that he's pushing forward. And so this rapid advancement group just makes sure that they look at all of the decisions, that it's not one group taking over another, that it's very inclusive, that we've made sure that we're listening to everybody's voice. And the group is interesting because it has different people, right, every week, depending on who can join. And anybody can join the group at any time. So if you're interested in being part of it, let me know. But the entire group is, or I should say, the entire group is run off consensus. So every time we make a decision on the process, every single person on the group has to agree to move forward. So if anybody has any concerns or something that's not sitting with them, we address them, we work through it with the group, we talk about it, and then we decide, is this the best decision for this project? And then we move forward. But I really wanted to let you know that the group existed to make sure everybody was aware the work that they're doing. Their time commitment has been amazing, and we're so appreciative because they've done a lot, and they do spend at least an hour every Monday meeting and then review documents and information moving forward. So Mike, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, one of the examples was just booking the convention center. That's something that you had to move fast. You had to have authority to go do it, and it was available. And we, the group pulled the trigger, but by conversation. So those are the kind of things that it's a little more cumbersome to get everybody's feedback on. And I call them logistics, things that have to happen logistically, as well as the content is what the groups are working on, and some of the procedure parts of it. It's just there to move it along, and if we needed something, we would definitely go to the entire steering committee for feedback on it. And again, yeah, by consensus, and it's open to anybody else. One of the things we've learned in this process that we're too sensitive to everybody's time, in the sense that we're trying to be too efficient, and sometimes you need a little more time. And so we're trying to spread the work out over a larger number of people so that we're mindful of people's times. But we don't ever want to exclude anybody if they feel like they've got more time or a contribution to make. So we tend to, coming from a business background, are always mindful of starting on time and ending on time and keeping meetings full and impactful And in doing that, we actually excluded some people to realize that, no, they wanted to participate. And we decided for them that we were trying to be too efficient. So that group even decided to make their meetings longer because they felt we weren't given enough time. So that's okay with me if you want longer meetings, but we tend to make them short and impactful.
Okay, good. So if anybody's interested in that, just email me and I will put you on the invite there. It's really that simple. Any feedback there? Cultural intelligence training. I just want to let you know, this was one of the things when the Rapid Advancement Group met, they have asked us to research, find out about cultural intelligence training, and to make sure that each of the leaders of the working groups are invited to join a workshop and learn more about cultural intelligence training, their style, and how to make sure that we're really inclusive in everything that we're doing. So you're going to hear more about that. And we've done the research, we've put the proposal out there, and so we'll be connecting with the work group leaders and with the steering committee about our next steps in doing that. But we are really, really committed to making sure that this is inclusive and that we're including everybody in Tampa and that we know how to include everybody in Tampa and make them feel included. And I have to give Russell Johnson a big shout out because this really was very important, very near and dear to his heart, and he brought this initiative forward. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, he said in a meeting, he said his experience that whites and black males will pick up a microphone at the drop of a hat. But if we wanted everybody's voice in the room, we had to really learn how to make sure that we got it in dealing with other groups. Hispanics, other minority groups, sometimes have to be invited in. And so he just made that observation, which was just so powerful to say, we're really serious about getting all the voices in the room. We need some training about what that looks like. And so as soon as he said that, we all just kind of turned our heads and said, and nodded and say, how do we do that? And wouldn't it be great if we could have training for everybody that came to the summit or joined a work group? We started playing with that idea, but this is kind of the beta kicking off, going through some training to see what it might look like, what we might be able to do more of, modify it. So Sherry and I know are volunteered to be guinea pigs to go through the process. But I think it will be very important, including the fact that we have a very diverse community that we're working with.
Sherry, can you add me to that training email when it's covered?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is Dima. I don't know if you know when I talk.
I do.
Okay.
I do. Put your name on.
I don't have a picture.
Any other feedback on that?
Well, yeah, your little box lights up when you talk. So if you look at the bottom,
but you know, I wasn't. I just had to make sure.
there you go. So we see you talking now. Yeah.
Yes, I know. Kind of.
I appreciate that, though. All right, good. Whoops. All right, so the last thing I want to talk about were next steps. So Desiree is the working group leader for the stakeholder working group. Bill Casal is the leader for the pre-summit momentum working group. He has volunteered, and thank you, Bill, to step up and help Christina, who was the leader, but she is doing so many other things for us right now that she was happy to have the help, but should still be very much included. And then Bruce Johnson is the leader for the post-summit momentum group. So I'm going to be reaching out to them, finding some days and times that they're available to meet so that they, and then I'll develop a doodle poll for them to send out to the teams to see when you can meet. And the questions they're going to ask are, they're going to find the date and time based on the doodle poll to see the best time that the majority of people can meet. And then they'll just find out if you want to meet in person or via Zoom. If you want to meet in person, then we'll find a location for you to meet. We'll try to do the best at making it convenient, but everybody's kind of spread out. And then we can also run a Zoom meeting at the live meeting, which is what we do for the Rapid Advancement Group. People get together live, and we also have a Zoom meeting that we run at the location to incorporate people or include people who can't be there. And I will work to come to the meetings to run the Zoom, and I will take notes for each of the meetings and send them out to everybody else. But those will be the next steps for those 2 working groups. And of course, Bruce will be included in those so that he can start getting things together for the post-summit momentum group. The guiding values group and the task logo group are about done with what they were working on. So they might want to join some of the other working groups as well. And if you have other people that you want to involve and include, then certainly let us know and we'll get them included and involved in the groups. And besides that, we just want to say thank you for everything that you're doing. Thank you for your time. Everybody's like superheroes all the time on this project. So it's really just so amazing to see how many people really are willing to roll up their sleeves and work to have a better city. And I talk to people all the time that say, please include me. I want to be a part of the process. So it's very exciting work, and thank you for everything that you're doing. So does anybody have anything else that they want to add? I want to be respectful of your time, but we have about 3 minutes.
I have a question. So as I think about the timeline, I've done this before, and we got what, 6 months. I'm getting freaked out about that. And so what I'm very curious about is how much momentum has already been done about the inviting of people, and how are we going to notify each other so that we're not duplicating work? So if I contact somebody that I think would fit into one of these categories, how do I know they've not already been contacted? And is there a list running about the momentum we've already done? So that's question 1. The second question is there a website ready for me to talk to someone to get them to reserve that date on their calendar and them to go look at this and make sure that we're making those commitments now? Because I mean, a lot of people's calendars are booked through the year. So, so those 2 things, duplication of effort and where to direct are my questions.
So to answer those questions, the best answer I have is I don't know the answer, but I will find it for you. So that's going to be part of the stakeholder group. Is I'm going to ask them, how do we want to create a list? How do we want to get that moving forward? So I will work with the stakeholder group to give you feedback on that, but that's a great idea to make sure we have it. As far as the website, we are ready. We just need to make sure with the finalization of the name. So Mike and I will kind of finish that up in the next, how long do you think, Mike? We'll be
Monday. We're going to decide on Monday. I've been pushed. I hate being in a holding pattern myself. I just want to go. We've had to wait on that one, but I think that we'll decide Connect and Propel Tampa Bay on Monday at the deal. Once they have authority to do that, they're going to buy the URL. They're going to put up the site. We'll be able to start to brand it that way. But we're pretty close to that being the name, at least for the overall project. No one's come back and said Connect and Propel is a horrible idea. You guys have lost your mind. So I think we're going forward on it, and we've got enough feedback from people that it feels right. We're going to move forward. But at the meeting on Monday, we'll get the authorization to build the website and then start the list. But I think you're great points, Michelle. I think it's not just inviting people. We have to go get them and say, not only do I want you to come, you got to come. And it's not just we're inviting you to say yes or no. The answer is we'll have to go find these other 800 people and make sure that they're wanted to be there. So great comments.
All right, thanks so much.
So I'm going to...
Sorry, I just have one more question. With the invitations, since we're the stakeholder group, has there already been any sort of work done in terms of like an email, a write-up, some sort of easy explanation of what this group is doing and the vision for it, other than the website?
We'll share with you what other projects have done, but not for this project yet, no, because the group hasn't met yet. But in my final statement here, the one thing I will let you know is that when we meet with David Cooperrider, Lindsay Godwin, and Bruce Sullivan every other week, and they feel we are right on track So even though we feel like we're really far behind, and I agree with all of your sentiments, Michelle, they really feel like we're on track and we're where we need to be. And Dima, what you said is perfect, because that's really what the stakeholder group is going to want to do. They're going to look at what other summits have done, what they want it to be, and that's why we're having this call, to get that work started. So that's perfect feedback. So thank you.
And Michelle, to your point is, if this was my project that I was responsible for, I'd be sweating bullets right now.
No sweating. We're in good shape.
But this is not my project. This is our project, and the reality is, and Robin can tell you, magical stuff happens. And let me tell you a call we had today, and I won't be long on this one. David Cooperrider connected us to Baycare, who did a summit in 2017 using appreciative inquiry, and they called it Baycare's Journey to the Extraordinary. And they've put 18,000 of their employees through training about what that looks like, and asking what has